All right. Shannon, where were you born in New York City?
I was in Queens.
Where,
That's
what part?
pretty much all I know because I was like a little kid when I was there, so I just know it was Queens, but
Okay. Oh, she's from New York City originally, moved to Charleston as a child. Went to Life University after graduating Charleston Southern University. Um, she's had quite a bit of a journey between owning coffee shops and doing some other stuff. But I'm going to finish up with what she wrote here. After moving to South Carolina, she continues to serve patients and future doctors as an assistant professor, Sherman College of Chiropractic in South Carolina, and a doctor in the health clinic. When not seeing patients, teaching or hosting seminars, Dr. Shannon enjoys spending time with her daughter Bexley, meal prepping, organizing, reading, and helping others reach their highest human potential by unleashing their authenticity. And I've followed Shannon for a while on social media, and that's she's a very authentic person. So, Dr. Shannon, the floor is yours.
hi, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here with you guys. So thank you. I know you could be literally anywhere else right now at 8:30 on a Monday night. So I am going to respect your time here. I really appreciate y'all having me. So, I mean, I kind of want to start off with a question that might seem a little bit odd, but like, have any of y'all ever been given an expiration date before? I see the faces. You're like, what are you
Yes.
talking about, right? So when I was younger, a kid, I actually had been given an expiration date per se of what my life capabilities were going to be, and then kind of given another one when I was in my late teens. And chiropractic was the thing that really changed the whole trajectory of my life for me. So that's for me why I do what I do. That's why I'm so passionate about chiropractic and just making sure that more people know about this because it literally changed my life. And I'm going to get more into what I mean by that in a second. But I mean, John just shared some stuff about my background. I teach at Sherman right now. I'm a pediatric and perinatal case doctor there. And then I taught at Life University, same type of role, faculty clinician before moving to South Carolina. And in terms of like chiropractic world stuff, I'm trained and certified in pediatric chiropractic. So CACCP through the ICPA, perinatal, all that stuff. The CCWP, I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with that. But I did
I
that
am.
as well. And that was a massive, massive shift in my mindset and leading me on the trajectory of my chiropractic journey. So I pull a lot of that information in as well. So basically, those of y'all who aren't familiar with it, it's basically a program that teaches you about, the nervous system and what chiropractic is doing for the nervous system and how a lot of these chronic lifestyle stressors that people are under nowadays is also affecting the nervous system and how that all interplays into caring for your patients in today's world. And that's something I talk about a lot is chiropractic in 2025, as much as it is still chiropractic foundationally, we're in a new world right now. Like we've never existed in the world we live in. I actually just had a kindergarten orientation for my daughter last week, which is crazy. And the principal of her school literally said in the orientation, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. We're teaching your kids how to live in a world that we've never even lived in yet. Like we don't even really know what to expect by the time your kids graduate, right? And we're trying to teach them how to be in this world. And I was like, well, at least you're aware of it, right? So, you know, for me, that there's just so much that plays into how we care for our patients that way. And then, yeah, outside of chiropractic itself, I like to joke that I'm kind of like a serial entrepreneur because I just like businesses. I co-owned a coffee shop, opened my own practice, co-owned a group practice. And now, in addition to teaching, I work online businesses and I'm part of like a few different like influencer platform type things. So really that's like a huge passion of mine, hobby of mine as well, and teaching chiropractors business aspects as well. So I teach a lot of my students how to run a business as a chiropractor so they can be successful, so they can help as many people as they can. So a little bit about my story when I was talking about the expiration date. So when I was a kid, I mean, I was relatively healthy, right? Or at least what you would consider healthy from the outside. We all know things are like under the surface and symptoms take however long they take to show up. But I was relatively healthy. My parents, like, we ate pretty good food, things like that. Like, wasn't anything crazy. And we didn't have as many crazy things when I was a kid as we do now either. But when I was about 9 or 10 years old, we made a big move from New York down to South Carolina. And, that was a pretty stressful event for me as a kid. I was already super, super shy kid, like, didn't want to speak in front of anybody, didn't want to be seen, like all the things. And then we moved into a new place. And looking back on it now, I understand how much stress of a situation like that can affect your nervous system. But of course, didn't really think about it then. So what started happening about like 6 to 8 months, I'd say, after we moved, I started experiencing this like issue while I was eating. So I would go to eat food, I would go to drink something, and I would feel like the food was just like stuck in my esophagus, and I could not get it like down into my stomach, which how many of us ever had to like try to get food into your stomach, right? It's just one of those things we tend to take for granted innately. So that was happening, and it was painful, it was very nauseating. It got to a point where it would take 45 minutes to an hour to like eat a few bites of food. It would make me sick. Like, I would literally have to go to the bathroom, and like I would lose my meal most of the time. And like, I look back and I kind of roll my eyes like, what was wrong with you? But I didn't really tell my parents. I didn't really tell a lot of people this was happening, because I don't know. I thought I was like getting a virus or something. And I was like, I'll be all right. Like, I'll get better. And my parents started noticing this happening, and I was like losing weight like crazy. And they were like, what in the world is happening right now? So long story short, they took me to, MDs, traditional medical route with things. And there were all these tests, right? Endoscopies. I had like barium swallows, all of these things going on. I didn't really know what was happening. I just showed up and I was like, okay. And long story short, find out like they ended up giving me a diagnosis, which doesn't really matter, right? But for purposes of this story, I'll just say it was like esophageal achalasia, which we did learn about in chiropractic school for like one line on one of our things. And I was like, oh, so this is kind of funny. Sometimes the things you learn about that you don't realize, like, oh yeah, people do experience these things. But I was, set up for surgery then at that point. And they were like, well, this is this really rare disease or whatever they called it, right? No, like cause, really no cure, but we're going to do this surgery where we're going to like slice into your esophagus, open up the sphincter, and you should be good. At that point, we were kind of desperate because I wasn't able to eat. I wasn't even able to keep like liquids down. So of course my parents are like, okay, do whatever we need to do so she can get food. I do that, and it doesn't help, right? Like, I go through the surgery a couple weeks later after the recovery period, it's still happening. And they're like, I don't know, like, bring her back in. Well, find out that there was complications from the surgery. So they had to kind of go back in, undo the complications that happened, and still didn't get better. So basically my game plan at that point, when I was 9 or 10 or however old I was, what they ended up doing, because they didn't have any answers for me, was I ended up getting Botox injections in my esophageal sphincter every 6 to 8 weeks for about a year. Because the theory was, well, the sphincter's closing, it won't let food go down. We're just going to open it, we're going to dilate it, and then we're going to inject this neurotoxin in there, which I didn't know was a neurotoxin at the time, right? I was like now that I know, I'm like, oh my God. And we're going to inject that in there so that it'll stay open, and hopefully you can get food down. So I'm doing this for a year, and my mom, like, thank God at some point she was like, okay, she's managing this right now. Like, it was still taking a weird amount of time for me to eat, like not like most normal people, but I was managing, right? So my mom, her brain, not knowing anything about like chiropractic or the philosophy or like the innate wisdom of the body, she just kind of knew. She was like, listen, if we keep going in there and we keep like messing with that tissue every 6 to 8 weeks, how is her body ever going to have a chance to actually heal? Like, we're just going in and we're re-injuring over and over and over again. So she calls up the doctor, and she cancels my next Botox injection. And y'all, literally, like, I think if this had happened nowadays, I think somebody probably would have called DSS on my mom, because they literally scared her, or like they tried to, what's the word? They mom shamed her. They basically literally were like, hey, you can't do this. Like, you're killing your daughter. Like, if she doesn't get these surgeries, she's gonna die. Like, you're killing her, all these things. So my mom was like, I think she's okay. I'll come back if we need it. Well, guess what was also happening around the same time? I was getting terrible migraines, terrible headaches. I mean, would come home every day from school, nauseous, turn the lights out, could not function. Tried a bunch of medications. They had me on like nitroglycerin and all these things as a kid too. Didn't help. I go to a festival in Charleston one day in Somerville, and there's a chiropractor there at a screening booth. And my mom just happens to walk by and she's like, I think we need to see a chiropractor. Like, I think chiropractic helps with headaches. So she's looking for the headaches, right? We go to this chiropractor. I start seeing him start getting adjusted. And this is all happening simultaneously at the same time as I start managing like my digestive symptoms better, right? But of course, at the time, I'm not putting two and two together. My parents aren't putting two together. I didn't put this together until like 15 years later, like when I'm in chiropractic school. So, chiropractic to me already changed my life because it helped with my headaches, right? So like symptom wise, I was able to like play with my friends after school and like go to clubs and do like that I was never able to do before because I was so sick with headaches every day. So I kept getting adjusted. I kept getting checked, all the way throughout my teenagehood, my young adulthood. Honestly, not really because I knew anything about like the philosophy per se. I just knew that I felt better when I got checked. So I went every single week, maybe every other week, like, but it was clockwork. It was like I was getting checked. Um, and this whole time I'm like managing those digestive system, or I don't know, I keep saying systems. It must be the case doctor in me because I'm always doing notes. Digestive symptoms. Um, and then as I transitioned to graduating high school, going to college, another big life stressor, right? So at that point, I'm getting all these symptoms back again, to the point where I was like, I have to go back to the medical doctor because I can't eat or get liquids down. So they do another surgery on me. Again, doesn't it fails, right? Or whatever their term is, it failed. And the last thing I know that kind of like shifted my mindset here was I go back for my follow-up, and the medical doctor was like, we don't really know why it's not working. We've done all the things we can do. The next step is we're thinking that we should cut out your esophagus and move your stomach up into your chest cavity, basically right under your throat. So the food doesn't even have to go through your esophagus. It just drops right here. And I was like 19 years old at the time. Okay. I was not by any means, I didn't have any doctor education, nothing. And I was just like, no thanks. Like, I think I'll pass. I'm gonna wait. Like, I'm gonna try other things first. So long story short, I end up in chiropractic school, and that's by another just like massive life shift. My now ex-husband, at the time we were dating, he had a massive low back injury. He was a firefighter, and I basically forced him to go see my chiropractor because I was just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, he was in the ER every week for painkillers. And I was like, you have to go see my chiropractor. Like, that's it. So he did that. I saw him get better. And to me, like, it was like my headaches were getting better. He got better. I just saw all these things. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I end up in chiropractic school. I end up studying all these things. And the CCWP for me really was like where I started also implementing some of the lifestyle stuff, right? So it's like, okay, how is food being a massive stressor on our system? How is our environment being a massive stressor on our nervous system? And how do we deal with that as chiropractors? And I 100% credit myself being a functional adult today because of chiropractic and everything that comes along with it, right? Because remember y'all, I said my ex-husband was a firefighter, he's a paramedic. He literally would come home some days and tell me stories about how he picked up patients, which, by the way, this was quote unquote a rare disease, right? My my ex-husband, in just his time being a paramedic, probably met at least 5 or 6 people that had the same disease, and they were on feeding tubes in their like 20s and in their like upper 20s. They were on feeding tubes. They were like not functional. And that really was like a mind-blowing thing to me. I was like, oh my God, they need to be adjusted. Like what, like, I was like, oh my gosh, they could be literally being helped right now. Um, so that really just lit a fire for me, that I was just like, oh, this isn't just me being like lucky. Like this is because chiropractic has helped my nervous system adapt. And then all of these other things are helping me adapt too. And it's allowing chiropractic to really optimize my nervous system function. Who knows where I would be without that, right? So that's for me why I practiced. I loved practicing. I loved working with patients, but I really and truly love teaching like future chiropractors about the power of chiropractic, about the power of the body, like our normal. Cause I just feel like we grow up, I guess that's the right term. We exist in a world where we just know the abnormals and we're taught all of the sickness and all the disease. And nobody talks about what we should actually be like and how we should exist. And one of the things that I will also say is, I don't know if it like ruffles some feathers sometimes, and it might, but for me, I think that we should absolutely keep chiropractic number one foundational for somebody, for us, right? Like you want to make sure that you're checking your patient's nervous systems and you're making sure you're clearing that so that they can adapt and be resilient to the world around them. And I think that if we have this knowledge about all of these chronic lifestyle stressors that are interfering with our nervous system's ability to adapt as well, that we shouldn't just turn a blind eye to that either. Because for me, I've noticed when I can help my practice members, my patients, my clients, whatever you want to call, the people you serve, when I help them understand that, hey, like you absolutely need to get checked. I mean, like they'll be like, oh, I stubbed my toe today. And I'm like, did you get your spine checked? Like, cause you stubbed your toe, like on that level of making sure you're getting checked. And do you realize that all of these other things, because I'm sure you all hear it all the time. They're like, Doc, why do I keep getting subluxated? Why does this keep happening to me? Like it's over and over. So that's when I have conversations with people about like, okay, well, we're kind of being assaulted by stressors in 2025. It's a different world than it was in 1895. And I feel like a lot of the chiropractic masters, right? They, number one, they just were masters at their art and their craft. So they were amazing. But number two, I feel like they could get to those really deep rooted layers of subluxations. And this is my hypothesis, okay? I'm just going to preface with this. I feel like they could maybe get to those deep rooted levels of subluxations maybe faster than some of us can, because people weren't being assaulted by stressors to the same degree as we are nowadays, or at least they were different, right? I mean, we've got EMF, we've got chemical stressors everywhere, we've got dyes in all our food, we've got food that isn't even food anymore. Y'all know what I mean, right? So it's like all of these things are layering on top of the stress of our nervous system. So when people come into our offices now, and we adjust them, we almost have to peel like 18 layers away sometimes before we can maybe get to that like really, really deep rooted subluxation pattern that some of our like founders maybe could have gotten to sooner. I don't know. Does that make sense to anybody? Like, did anybody
It
agree, or
completely
like,
does, Shannon. Like I'm in practice coming in 33 years, and I can tell you that 30 odd years ago, people got better faster than they do today. There's way more chemical toxin. There's way more toxins, physical, emotional, as Tony would say, challenges than we've ever had before as a society. So you're completely on there. The other thing I want to comment on is because you had an organic issue that was basically at the root of your chiropractic experience, that level of certainty that you got is really comes through in everything in the way you communicate. Um, when you said a number of times, have you got checked? You stubbed your toe. Did you get checked? emphasizing that importance of getting checked, I think, is the thing that's missing from a lot of chiropractors. So I'd like you to comment a little bit more on that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, so this is something I talk to my students about all the time too. That because a lot of times I feel like students will come in and they've got like boards brain, right? So they're learning all the things for boards and all the stuff. And then they come into clinic and they're like, oh, I don't know what to say to my patient. Like, I don't know how to communicate this to them. And I'm like, listen, all you got to say is like, your nervous system is controlling everything in your body right now. So if you're dealing with something, even if you're not, right, like there's a wellness conversation too, but like if you're dealing with something, number one, let's make sure your nervous system is communicating to every system in your body like it should be. And then like, let's let your body do its thing. And then we can talk about options X, Y, Z, if that's, if that comes up later. So I think helping people understand that that's the foundation of health, because you can eat all the organic food in the world, you can exercise, you can meditate, do all these things. And I love all these things, right? Like I love biohacks, I love all of it. But you can do all these things. But if your nervous system has interference and you're not communicating like it's supposed to be, you're never going to get full benefit out of all of those biohacks. So I think emphasizing, have you been checked? Like, let's make sure your nervous system is functioning at its best first. And then the other thing that I also emphasize is frequency of getting checked. So I think sometimes, I've seen a hesitation sometimes in asking people to come in multiple times a week or however often you think clinically that person needs to be checked. And I think we really need to keep that in mind, like based on this person's level of stressors in their life, in their system, they might need to be checked way more often than they have been, and it's like sometimes I have students that are, maybe a patient's coming in like once every 2 weeks or something, right? And something's going on. And then the student will come to me and they're like a little discouraged. They're like, oh, I don't know. Like they seem to have an exacerbation. I'm not sure what's going on. Like, is this even working for them? And then I peel back the layers and I'm like, hold on. They just had a major life stressor, like, somebody passed away or whatever it is. And they're experiencing that in their nervous system. Like we actually need to check them more than that now because they're processing a lot of stress and this will help them process that better. So I always want to be like, chiropractic is never the problem. Chiropractic works all the time. We may just have to increase the frequency or change up, how we're approaching some of these things, but chiropractic is going to work. We just have to be like adaptable enough to adapt it to what that person needs.
It's interesting because Desjardins talked about the fact that the primary subluxation sets up by 6 years of age. So that's why he recommended you start with kids as fast as possible. Heidi Havik talks about this idea of neuroplasticity and that people are coming in so scrambled, so garbled up that they need much more frequent care than we recommend. She actually has done the math showing that the average person needs upwards of 50, 60, 70 visits to even start becoming neuroplastic enough to become adaptable. That's interesting research. I'll share it another time.
Yeah.
And then also the idea is that most docs don't, I think the biggest thing that's missing, that's one of the reasons we do these Band of Brothers goals, is most people are lacking the certainty. You did the CCWP, but that's with James Chestnut's group, right?
Yes.
And eat well, move well, think well. Could you comment a little bit more about the value of that for the level of certainty that you've achieved and how you incorporate that into what you're training the students with?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think one of the things is like with that program, so there's 4 different modules, and the first module is all about the neurology of the subluxation and how adjusting somebody's subluxations is going to optimize how their body works, right? So there's a whole module on that. And he even said like he does that one first because again, he was like, chiropractic is the foundation of all of the rest. But then there's a whole module on making sure that the whole premise of this is that we need to live and exist congruently with our innate DNA, right? So like as a human species, we are all meant to exist in a certain way. I mean, if you think about the difference in lifestyles, 100 years ago versus now, I mean, at one point, not too long ago on the timeline of life, we didn't have light, right? Like we couldn't be doing the Zoom call. Well, we couldn't do Zoom because we didn't have the internet, but like we couldn't even do the Zoom call because we wouldn't have had light at this point because it's dark outside. So going from, we used to live a lifestyle where we rose and went to bed with the sun, and when the sun went down, we lived in small tribes that we had that community at all times. We didn't have to go search and pay 3 times extra for the organic apple. We just went and picked it off the tree. It wasn't a whole extra stressor just to get organic. We moved just in our normal everyday life instead of having to pencil in gym time. It was just a part of our life. So going from that to our lifestyle now, it's such a drastic change in such a short period of time that our DNA as humans doesn't really know what it's doing with that, right? Like it does, like we're innately intelligent, it's adapting, but it's a rapid rate of adapting compared to what normally you would do when you adapt, DNA speaking. So that's where the prevalence of subluxation is just so high because our systems are constantly like running and playing catch up, trying to exist in this world that our DNA isn't even really accustomed to yet. So that really just helped me understand how these lifestyle things, like how, we adjust our patients and then we send them back into like the toxic pool, potentially. And I'm not saying by any means that you need to be like somebody's babysitter and be like, don't eat that or don't do that. But I do think just having awareness of these things and then being able to drip that into your patient's education is huge. And it just helps people get better and get better faster and stay well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. You have in your paper that I got from your website, breath work and obviously network spinal. I've been adjusted by Donnie, so I know what that's about. And energetic biohacking. Could you talk a little bit more about the energetic biohacking and the breath work?
Yeah. So what I did when I was in private practice in Georgia type settings where we would do like network spinal and we would check, nervous systems that way. And then we would also incorporate breath work into the healing sessions, right? Because the breath work, it has a way of being able to calm your nervous system down. It's also a way of being able to help regulate what's going on in your brain. And you can actually activate certain parts of your brain with certain breath patterns. If you add certain words while you're doing breath patterns, you can activate other parts of your brain. And it's really a cool healing modality. So that is something that like I was very resistant to it, to be honest. Like when I first started learning it, I was like, oh, this is like hippie stuff. I don't understand what this is. And I've just seen how much it can help certain populations of people kind of unwind some of that tension in their nervous system. So then when you check their spine and you adjust them, they're like a little bit more open to even receiving some of that
Do you have
care.
any resources for that? If somebody on the call wanted to follow up on that, how would they get information on the breathing
Yeah,
exercises?
so what I would suggest for that is a lot of the breath work and the stuff that I did was SRI, somatorespiratory integration. So I don't know if they have its own website, but I know if you go to like epienergetics.com, they have a whole like resource and research list too. And I think SRI is plugged into it. But if you look up somatorespiratory integration, there is stuff on that, but you could like Google that and find stuff there too.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
It's funny you said hippie because what a lot of them don't know, since I've been following you on social media, you're the nerdy hippie.
Yeah, I like to
Yeah,
joke and call myself that, but
it was pretty funny. I said she's got a good sense of humor. Um,
if you can't
uh,
laugh at yourself, what are we even here
so
for?
tell me a little bit more about this. Are you training the students to run a business?
Yeah, so I'm in the clinic, right? So I would say like 90% of my interactions are straight over patient care and documentation and things like that. A lot of my interactions when it comes to helping students with their business stuff comes to the students who will make appointments with me and see me like outside of clinic hours. But being able to help them like navigate contracts, first of all, that's another thing. I have so many students that will come to us with contracts, like helping look over that. Um, I give any type of experience that I've had because I feel like I've done a variety of things. I mean, I opened up solo practice when I first graduated, rented a room and kind of practiced as my own entity in another practice. And then I co-owned, well, I started as an independent contractor with a group practice and ended up co-owning with them. So I kind of went through like different phases and options that a lot of students have available to them as they're graduating. So I will just sit down with them. I'll go through my experience. I'll go through the experience that I've noticed with other students because I do get a lot of feedback as students graduate. I stay in contact with them and I know how they're doing. And then even just from like, let's just say from a non-chiropractic perspective, right? So I opened up a coffee shop. So knowing like a brick and mortar service-based business kind of thing with a product like coffee on, in terms of teamwork, because we had a team for our practice. And it was really interesting. Like when you start looking at this, the coffee shop that I owned and my practice were literally 2 buildings away from each other in Marietta. So we would walk back and forth sometimes between shifts, and there'd be like our team of like our CAs and things like that in our chiropractic practice. And then we'd have our team, like our manager and our baristas in the coffee shop. And when you start looking at behind the scenes of team training and team culture and hiring process and systems and all that stuff, they were very, very similar. It was like, of course, we're talking about chiropractic and we're talking about coffee, but the whole infrastructure of the business was very much the same. So I feel like that for me really taught me like, okay, if you can put systems and procedures in place, you really can set yourself up for success. So that's a lot of the stuff that I try to help navigate as I can with students.
Excellent, excellent. Now, with your position as a student mentor, a lot of docs in the field are looking for associates. What is the mindset or the expectation of a student coming out of school today? Because we're seeing a bit of a disconnect about what the practice is really about versus what they're expecting.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I feel like there's a difference, right, in expectations. What I will say is the latest type of generation of students, so like the COVID generation, right? Like a lot of these students actually started chiropractic school when things were online and virtual. And so at one point there were like a few classes that they had been online for several quarters and hadn't even been on campus until, a year plus into the program. So we're getting out of that now because now it's like any of those classes are like graduating out. So now the classes coming in or we're just like business as usual now. But what I will say is there is very much a thought process of there's a lot more like want for instant gratification, I feel. And that's just something that we're having to navigate to be like, I understand that we're in the digital world. I understand that social media is very much like a thing that you can utilize and you should utilize it. And these in-person connections, I feel like we're having to just have conversations with students. And as crazy as it sounds, just like being like, hey, you got to get out in the community. You got to meet people. Like you got to network and not just be behind, your phone. And that's coming from somebody who I do a lot on social media and I love it. And I think it's a huge tool. But I think there's a lot of like instant gratification mindset and not for nothing, but I think there's potentially some bad apples that might, people are like looking at it and being like, oh, well, they say I just need to do this, this, and this. And like, I don't need to do anything else and I'm going to be successful out the gate. So I think for us as chiropractors, just like being real with them and just being like, listen, it's a business. You have to build it up. You have to get out there. You have to talk to people. It's going to be great when you do, but there is going to be some work and it's not just let's put a post up on social media, put a sign out outside of our door and just not do anything. So I don't know if that even
So,
answers your question, but that
no,
was
it did. It really talks about expectation management, you know,
yeah,
being very, very clear in your communication.
yeah, for
Well,
sure.
before, your boss, I believe, is Brian Dilly, isn't he?
Yes.
Tell him I said hi.
I will.
I'm going to open the floor up. Please unmute yourself. You have any questions that want to ask Shannon, or you want to make any comments? Let's show a little bit of love. Everybody unmute yourself.
Hi, Dr. Shannon. I think it's
Hi.
a great presentation that you made tonight and evoked a lot of thought. I think with the students, in terms of like what it would be like to do a practice without social media, to actually give them the what it was 40 years when people started practices in terms of like, well, let's say if you had no phone, what would you do? So to give them an opportunity to actually go out and introduce themselves to people in the community, a way to educate them more about the body, more about what chiropractic can do. So this way the kids have like a plan of actually touching people, meeting people, speaking to people, as opposed to like trying to do everything.
Yeah, no, 100%. That was great. And I think that is one of the things that's so whenever we go out for events for the college and we bring some interns with us and they just see, so sometimes like me and then other case doctors will be out there interacting and talking to the public. And I have so many students after come up and they're like, oh, okay, so that's like, that wasn't too bad. Like you just talk to people. And I was like, yeah, that's what you do. And I get it. I totally get it. Cause I'm like the biggest like introvert person ever. I can definitely put the extrovert switch on. But I get it. But it was one of those things that I think sometimes, yeah, students overcomplicate it because of the phone. They're like, well, I got to do all these things. It's like, no, just say hi. Just start with hello.
You find that um, that students today have a difficulty with critical thinking, where they're not looking at a person coming in that's a chiropractic patient the same as a medical doctor would in regards to the basics of evaluation of a person that walks off the street and comes to you with a complaint, and your ability to critically think about what that complaint is and extrapolate on what it could be. Um, do you see that students don't take that path as much as they need to, and that their path is merely, not merely, but their path is just so straightforward chiropractic that they sometimes could make themselves susceptible to missing things?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm going to be honest, there's almost, I see both sides of it. And I don't know that there's like a majority one way or the other, but I do feel like there's like half of students, especially when they first come into clinic, they either are so dead set on like, I'm here to just find the subluxation. I'm just going to adjust the patient. Like, I don't even care about your case history. Like, they don't even want to ask the questions, that kind of thing. And that's a bit challenging because I want to be like, hey, listen, I hear you. I know this person needs to be adjusted 100%. And we need to do these things because there's a standard of care that we need to follow. And for that person's sake, you want to make sure that we're taking care of what he's taking care of. So there is a population of students like that. I do also see a population of students that are so inundated with textbook material at school that they come in and everything to them is an immediate red flag refer out. And they're just like, oh my God, I can't, like, we refer out. We're not even gonna touch this person. I'm like, hold on, take a breath. Like, it's okay. Like, let's think through this, right? So, and I know that's not like the best answer because I don't know that there's one that's more majority than the other. I kind of feel like it's a straight 50-50 split where it's like they come in one way or the other. They're either like, I can't touch this person, refer out, like red flag, or I'm not even gonna talk to this person. I'm just gonna adjust them. So I really have to, like a lot of the case doctors have to work on bringing it a little bit more into the middle there, but there definitely is a population of people who do that. And I try really, really hard to be like, listen, I 100% love your enthusiasm for chiropractic and they need to be checked. And you need to protect yourself as a practitioner and protect that patient. You just don't know what might be going on, especially again with what's going on in the world nowadays. There's just so many things happening.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that they need to understand that that vetting process that they go through with the patient that removes them out of that musculoskeletal world of that, and most likely the chief complaint, allows them to open up a door to let them understand that this is much deeper than, you know, you getting cracked and it feeling better after the muscle relaxes and you come here a couple of times and we fix whatever's gone wrong, you know. I think that when you teach them that critical thinking, they understand and they remember all this miracle that they heard of that the body is capable of, right? And that the patient who really doesn't understand that because they come from a medically oriented mindset. And so when you come to them and say, okay, this is why we're looking at this is why we want to do these tests, this is what's happening, and these are the susceptibilities. And I think the more you know about the susceptibilities of certain things that are going on in our system, our healthcare system, but also know that there are some susceptibilities to a chiropractic patient who presents with certain things. So when they listen to that deeper end of things, I think they start to think a little deeper that, wow, you know, I never even thought that this is all related. And that opens up that door for later on. We're going to address their problem and they need to understand that. But past that, addressing the problem, we're going to, if you allow us to, teach you why that even is there in the first place. So I love where you're at because you're right. You're on the front lines there, kiddo. So, you know, when you're dealing with this mindset of, and I've met a couple of them where it's like, hey, I just want to detect, locate, and correct subluxation. I said, that's wonderful. That's the whole idea of what you do, but really no one understands that. So you have to deal with what their problem is first, and then allow them to move on to that next level to really understand, you know, what the real benefit of this is. And I think when you talk to those very straight subluxation people like that, they kind of go, yeah, I get it. And, you know, and they're not vested yet in anything. They don't have money. They don't have a home. You know, if they're young, they're just starting out, they're in debt. So they don't really worry about anything that can happen. But it's good that you have those two differences of opinion and that you mitigate each one of those to give them an idea of, hey, let's just take a deeper look. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was a great question. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think the foundation of all of our stuff really comes down to the communication. You know, it's my wife is a community college teacher of digital media, and they actually have a class called interpersonal communication. Who'd have thought you would need a class to learn how to relate and communicate with other humans? Mm-hmm. And the culture has changed with our young doctors. And if anything else, I think the biggest thing, when I was at Sherman back in the early 80s, Dick Plummer had a communications class where we actually learned how to give a lay lecture. And we had to get up in front of the class and communicate to our peers, which is your foundation that gets you into the general public eventually. And that kind of stuff seems to have gotten lost a little bit, which is why we, of course, go to New Beginnings and try to bring young people along with us as well. But it's great to see Sherman has such good talent down there, like you as well, Shannon, and appreciate all you do down there, and hope you stay on board for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah, same. Go right ahead. I'm stepping on somebody's toe.
That's okay, Brian. Thanks. So do you find in terms of the communication that a lot of the students will try and hide behind social media as opposed to communicate with people and get out and talk? And if also, do you find that sometimes if things are a little too difficult, they're like, I forget it, I'm just going to do something different?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting that you say that, because I found that the thought is that they will have social media in practice. And it's like, when I graduate, I'll have social media and I'm going to do it then. But when they're in school, there's a very small percentage of students who are actually very active on their social media in a way that would, you know, be putting chiropractic out there in any way. I mean, sometimes they might post pictures of their lattes or their cat, you know, but like, not that I don't do that, so there's nothing wrong with it, but not necessarily in a way that would help them chiropractic wise or build a business or get the message out to people. So I'm actually like, I had quite a few students, and even, you know, Dr. Dooley, he even asked me, he was like, hey, at some point, can you do like a social media marketing workshop for the students? So I'm actually going to be doing one of those this quarter. to help kind of be like, hey, you do have to get out there. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with social media. I think it's an amazing tool. It's a free platform to get your message out. I think everybody should be utilizing it. It's not the only thing that they should do. But to answer your question, it's ironic sometimes because students are like, oh, I don't need to go out and do that because I'll have social media. And I'm like, but you're not on it right now. Like, you're not even using it. And it's like, oh, I'll get there one day. And then I do have some students reach back out to me when they graduate. They're like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I said, I was gonna wait to do this and now I need help, you know? So
Yeah.
I think it's a little of both. And for me, I'm like, you know what? I think you can start building that stuff when you're a student. Obviously, you have to be compliant. Like you can't be calling yourself Dr. So-and-so on your social media, but I think there's a way to educate and get the message out as a student. So, you know, I hopefully will move in that direction where they'll at least be starting to do some of that before they graduate.
Shannon,
That's
I think the danger is where the exception becomes the rule. Like,
Mhm.
I know of a couple of docs, young docs, that came out of school and blew themselves up on Instagram, went from like 0 to 300 a week on Instagram. But that's not the average person. It's not that easy to do, and it's not like anybody, like they had invested a lot into how social media works, and it worked for them. But it's not like everybody can do that.
Right.
So, you know, it's interesting where the exception became the rule rather than being the exception.
Right.
So-
And it's like social media is a great tool to support your practice. So that way, you know, you have a place for when you make connections in public and you're going out. Now you have a way to connect with them and they can follow you and see your content. But yeah, you can't just do that alone. It's like the 1% can do it by itself and something happens to go viral, but like you don't want to just wait around for something to go viral. Like you want to actually make sure it's working. So yeah, it's a really good point.
Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I'm very thrilled that there are people like you teaching the young students in our chiropractic colleges. I wish I could say more. I wish I could say that to other teaching people in other chiropractic colleges. Just one question. You mentioned that what was it? Somatorespiratory. What was
Integration.
Integration.
Somatorespiratory integration. Yeah. It's like a
Great.
breath work that combines, you know,
No milk.
yeah.
No milk.
And like speaking and being able to work through that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Just a heads up, it looks kind of crazy. Like I'll just say it. Like when you're looking at it, you're like, what are they doing? But
Brian and I have done holotropic breathing together. It's pretty crazy.
okay. All right. So you got it. You're good.
Anybody else? Rick, Mark, anybody want to ask any questions or say anything? Dave? Can't hear me. Okay, no problem. Well, Joanne, you still on?
I'm here.
Alana,
I'm here.
any questions?
No, it's very encouraging though. That we're
Okay.
getting younger people that are getting taught, you know, what we grew up with the principles, and thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, of course. I just saw a question in the chat about how to get in contact with me. I'll put in the chat. I mean, I'll put my phone number if y'all want my phone number. But I'll put my
that'd be good.
contact info in there. That way you guys can have it if I could remember correctly. And then I'll put my so y'all can call or text with that number. And if you're on Facebook, let me put here, Facebook, if you look up Shannon FInnerty Martin, I should show up. And if you're on Instagram, hold on. That's my handle on Instagram. So I'm pretty active on social media. So I check my DMs if that's another way you can reach out to me too. Can the doctors get a sneak peek of the digital marketing course? That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about, honestly, like I'm thinking about maybe like live streaming it as I'm doing it. I don't know how that works with like Sherman. Like sometimes they're like, you can't record things and not. So I don't know, but maybe it'll be on my page. I don't know. I'll let you know.
Never know. You never know. Well, listen, Shannon, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. Keep sharing all your stuff on social media. let me know when your name becomes Joy again. I know you were changing your name back, so.
Yeah, it
But,
actually officially happened. I just haven't changed over my stuff yet.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you.
Thank you,
listen, have a
Shannon.
good
Thank
night.
you
Thank
so
you for your
much.
time.
Have a
Good
good night.
night.
Have a great night, guys.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.